Welcome back to another episode of the Media Pass. I am your host, Alex, joined as always by your other host, Matt. Matt, how you doing?
Oh, phenomenal, man. Phenomenal. Playoffs are the playoffs. Yeah, man, this is the last like hellacious weekend for like me and you where we have to watch like 10 games in 3 days. But other than that, great, man. Can't ask for anything more.
I love it. So we do have some questions to start this episode. We're going to get into all of the playoff talk, everything that's been happening over the last week or so at this point. The last time you guys heard from us was Tuesday, I believe. So you get 2 episodes in 1 week. So hope you guys enjoy it. But let's get into these questions. First question we have from Cam L1720. I have a question. Isn't having people crammed in around the court a hazard for how often players are at a sprint as they go out? Surely OSHA would shove all the courtside seats back a few meters and put in some pads like every indoor gym court ever. I've thought about this before. I do think courtside seats are too close. I think we're fortunate that it doesn't lead to more injuries. I think players kind of operate. I think players would make a lot more ambitious dives and plays for balls that are going out of bounds if we did push the courtside seats back further, which could potentially lead to more injuries. I think having them that close, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I do think there's like a certain level of like, okay, the courtside seats are this close, so I can't be super, super, super crazy like diving for a ball going out of bounds. Not saying it's a good thing, but I do think it actually acts as some sort of like a deterrent to a certain extent.
Some of my fondest memories as a kid, dude, is like watching like Shaq jump like 4 rows in for like a loose ball that he definitely just couldn't have gotten. I think he just wanted to do it. So I kind of like that element of like players. I know it's like it's dangerous. There's a lot of dangerous parts of life when you really think about it, but I don't know, man. I think basketball, it prides itself. One of the things is just like it's a player-driven game, right? You know, you have this intimacy towards the players. They're not wearing any helmets or any sort of padding. Like you can see them very clearly. You get to know them pretty well, the personalities and stuff. I feel like that all adds to the experience, like just being able to be like right in front of it all. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's been some messy situations because of it. But I think the good outweighs the bad here.
Yeah, I would say like the amount of injuries that happen that are like a direct result of player contact with fans is probably insanely small. Like it's very rare for that to happen. It's way more common for a player to just get hurt playing basketball. Like I'm not sure how big of a risk it truly weighs out to being. But interesting question, something I have thought about.
You know what's more dangerous? Yeah. Andre Drummond. He is dangerous.
Yeah.
He's way more dangerous. We need to find a way to make him like danger proof before we even worry about like fans and how close they are and what it might do to players. Cause he's been taking bodies left and right.
Apparently it's dangerous to be around Joel Embiid when he's on the ground too.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that later.
Different story.
Yeah. Next question we have from Behind the Arc YT, frequent commenter, supporter of the podcast, the channel, all of our work. Shout out to him. Good episode as always, y'all. Thank you. Have a new question. Do you think next season should the Pelicans have both Herb Jones and Trey Murphy in the starting lineup? Seen that brought up consistently on Twitter lately. Matt, you want to take point on this one, and I'll sprinkle in my thoughts here and there.
Yeah, I think for people who follow my work, definitely look for something Brandon Ingram related next week. I think there's a discussion that needs to be had about some of his strengths and weaknesses. And obviously you never want to like go into, because I, like me and you both, I think I consider like what our work is. It's kind of like sort of scientific, you know, like we have like a hypothesis about something. We do our analysis. We come out with some sort of conclusion. You never want to, like have your intended conclusion in mind before you start the empirical process. But like my theory, we've been watching BI for years now. And my assumption is that like his style is just, it's not right now like conducive to like ceiling raising, high level ceiling raising. And I think that it's time for his stint with the Pelicans to end after this season. I think they should explore a trade for him. And if they do, I think that, two guys that should definitely be at the centerpiece of their next great team around Zion, it would be Trey Murphy and Herb Jones.
Yeah, I love Brandon Ingram. I've been a giant Brandon Ingram fan since he came into the league. He's been one of my maybe not favorite players, but of the guys that I enjoy watching. Yeah, I get comped to Brandon Ingram. I love watching him and I love his game, but you can love somebody's game and also understand that they're a flawed player and the situation that they're in the context of what they've been able to do over the past X amount of years, hasn't been the best. And I think I definitely agree that it's time for his stint with the Pelicans to come to a close. And by proxy, I don't even think you need Herb Jones or Trey Murphy to come off the bench at that point, because you take Brandon Ingram out, that opens up a spot. I'm assuming it would be CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones, Zion, and Valanciunas. Or, I have thoughts about Valanciunas. I have thoughts about CJ McCollum. Different discussion, different pod. We'll cross that bridge probably, depending on how the rest of the OKC New Orleans series plays out. There's probably a discussion we could have after that series, depending on how that plays out. But we'll see. Anything can happen. So, the Pelicans win this series, and where everyone's going to be singing a different tune about Brandon Ingram, Jonas Valanciunas, CJ McCollum. So I don't want to jump the shark there. Good question. We'll see. Next question we have from Steamy Ramen 7743. They said, "What's up, brothers?" I like the reference. Do you know that reference?
What's up, brothers? Is that a Hangover one?
No, it's there's this streamer named Sketch, and he his big thing is like, "Hey, brother."
No, see, I'm not.
It's
online,
it's
dude.
all the rage on the internet right now. I feel like a 50-year-old man explaining this to you.
I have no like. I'm only on Twitter because I know I need to be on Twitter to do my job.
Yeah.
Other than that, social media doesn't really make any sense to me.
Yeah, the funny thing is you're younger than me, and I'm explaining this to you.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy, man.
I am unfortunately online too much. Continuing the question, in my heart, you'd both win the 1v1. Thank you. That's very kind. We'll see how it plays out when the time comes.
Yeah.
Was arguing with some of the pals after I voiced Luka isn't a great leader. From my POV, he has some pretty bad body language and doesn't always get down on defense. I came here for some guidance. What's your take? And is being able to be a leader important?
Can I say something?
Go for it.
This is something that bugs me a lot about Western culture. I'm for people who don't know, I'm a first generation American. My parents came from Iraq. So, Eastern culture, right? And I'll say this about pretty much every Eastern culture I've ever been around. You'll see this when you watch Joel Embiid, you watch Giannis, you watch Jokic, you watch Doncic. People there, they exaggerate emotions more, right? And so I think Doncic, he just it's more, he looks angrier, he looks more disgruntled than what we're accustomed to seeing Western basketball players who express their emotions in a more measured way. So I think that gets miscast a lot in terms of him being a bad leader, because everyone Kyrie Irving, this guy can't get along with anybody, and he freaking loves Luka Doncic, right? So that should tell you everything you need to know about him on that front. And then the other thing is, I think this question, when was it asked? Was it Tuesday morning?
I believe so.
Yeah,
one day ago, according to
okay. Well, I think he might have aged a little bit poorly because he just pitched an incredible defensive outing against the Clippers in Game 2. So, I guess my guidance is understand the differences in culture with the expressing emotions and stuff. And then, defensively, he's obviously supposed to be your worst defender on the floor, ideally, and that comes with some roster building limitations. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit overblown.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say is leadership is too often expected to fall on the shoulders of like the best player on the team. When in reality, like if you go back through NBA history, if you look at the best players on each team that won a championship, like sometimes it's not the best player that was the leader. It was the coach, or it was some 35-year-old guy coming off the bench. Like, you don't have to be a leader if you're the best player. Now, if there is no other leader on the team, maybe you consider kind of trying to take up the mantle and take on a leadership role. But I don't think that's something that like necessarily comes with the job description, you know? Like just because you might be the best salesman at the company, but that doesn't mean you should be the CEO. You know, does that make sense?
Oh yeah. 100%, dude. I mean, that's why they have Dwight Powell.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, like look at Marcus Smart for the Celtics. He was kind of like the leader of the Celtics. Probably pre Ime Udoka, because I think Ime Udoka kind of took on that leadership role. But like a lot of the times it's the coach. Look at the Denver Nuggets. Michael Malone's the leader of that team. You know, it's going to change depending on what team you're looking at.
Even player-wise, I mean, DeAndre Jordan's definitely more of a vocal voice than Jokic, just from watching them on the sideline, all the anecdotes you read and stuff. But yeah, no, I agree. It's two different things. I think LeBron kind of messed it up for everyone, where he's like the perfect player, perfect role model, perfect leader. He kind of messed with expectations for star players.
Yeah. I completely agree. So let's get into some playoff talk. Also, real quick, if you have questions, be sure to drop them in the comments. We'll try to answer them at the beginning of next episode. If we have too many, we'll cross that bridge when it comes. But yeah, drop some questions. We always love these. Appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts with us and supporting the channel. But let's get into some playoff talk. Now, Matt, you took a lot of heat last night. Tell me what your thoughts are on the Darvin Ham situation. Let's get a temperature check.
This is bad podcasting. Bad podcasting. But can I rant about something other than Darvin Ham just for a quick second? I want to pull. You know how we're the media pass, we pull people behind the curtains. We tell them about what it's like to actually work in sports, but like be working in sports, but you're not big time enough to like be KOC or Stephen A. Smith, like just the regular folk working in sports. Right. But so, I mean, if you look my spreadsheet, Alex's spreadsheet of the games we've watched, publicly available, easy to find. I'll send the link to anybody who wants it, right? You can see how many games we watch. We're not lying. That'd be pretty pathetic. This year, I had a down year watching regular season wise. I only watched 200 regular season games this year, which is below my usual standard. I had a lot going on personally and with school. So that messed with things a little bit. But no matter what happens, my rule is in the playoffs, you watch every meaningful game. Okay? You watch every meaningful game because you want to be able to talk about every series. So what do I define that as this year? Every series except for the Miami-Boston series, but I might have to remedy that if the Heat win another game in this series, which will be really bad because I'll have to go back and watch all the games I've been skipping. But other than that, I've been watching every game of every series. Okay? You watch them until they lose meaning. What does that mean? Means that one team is up by something, like a team's up 3-0 usually means you could stop watching unless it's like the Celtics Heat thing, because you figured out how they got to that point, and it's very, 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 very unlikely that they lose that lead. Or if they're up 3, there's some situations like, do you remember 2 years ago when the Bucks played the Bulls in the first round and they got up 3-1? I remember, and then Zach LaVine was announced to miss Game 5. Once I saw the way that series was going, I'm like, okay, this is like the Bucks are doing something that the Bulls just don't have the personnel to beat. And then Zach LaVine's not playing now. I'm like, okay, this series is over. I'm not watching the rest of it. And then they lost in Game 5, right? So like, we're human beings at the end of the day. We do have this thing called lives. I'm graduating in 2 weeks from college.
From law school.
Law school, yes, yeah. And so like, I want to enjoy that part of my life. And I'm like looking ahead at this weekend, I'm like, I got 11 games I need to watch. 10 actually, not counting that Celtics Heat game. So coming into yesterday morning, I got 10 games. Now we have 3 different series that could go to a 3-0. Once they go to a 3-0, I'm not watching anymore, right? So I got Cleveland Magic, Knicks, 76ers, and Nuggets, Lakers. Let me retract that. I'll watch it, but I'm not like watching analysis, taking notes, rewinding, asking myself a bunch of questions. I'm just kind of watching, right? And I'm like, you know what, man? Knicks, 76ers, I don't care what happens. Like, I love this series. I could watch 20 games of it. Honestly, same thing with Lakers, Nuggets. We'll talk about it. But Nuggets did win, so I'll probably take my foot off the gas that series. But the one series that honestly sucks to watch, it does suck to watch. I love all the players involved. I just don't like these two teams matching up. It's no fun. This series has been no fun for me to watch. I take no pleasure in it, okay? Is that Cavs Magic series. So I'm like sitting there, asking the man upstairs. And I'm like, dude, please, just let the Cavs win this goddamn game. Let them win the goddamn game, okay? And what do? Not only do they lose by 40 freaking points, man. 40. And it's just like, Jesus Christ. There goes my weekend. Like, I'm not trying to sound spoiled or arrogant to like the privilege I have that I could call this my job. I thank everyone for allowing me to do it. I don't need to see 7 games of the series because now that I know the Magic won that way, they can keep doing it. They can push this thing, dude. It's not going to be like a Cavs win game 4, they win game 5, they go on to the next round. No. Jamal Mosley made an adjustment. He put Wendell Carter in the starting lineup. It works. Isaac's back to being good again. It is going tooth and nail, wire to wire. We're going to see 7 games of the series.
I don't want to say I'm not happy about it because I do like the Magic and I do like the Cavs, and like I'm totally fine with either of these teams winning this series. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I look at and I'm like, oh no, they actually like figured something out that works and they're going to abuse it and force the Cavs to figure it out. And now we might actually get like the whole chess match thing, which like from a analysis perspective, that's fun. Don't get me wrong. But also it's a lot of work during a time where business is booming. Good problem to have ultimately. And like, yes, we're not complaining about this. It's just like sometimes a team figuring things out is like, we have to find the silver lining in it because God forbid every series goes to 7 because wow, I don't know how I would be able to survive that insane amount of work. But let's talk about just some quick bullet points from this game.
We want to go back to Magic first, or
well, let's cover this series and then we'll skip over to that one just to make sure we hit all the high points. The Cavs scored 83 points in this game. 83 total points. Very, very low. Is this the lowest point total for a team of the playoffs so far?
That's
like it's got to be
tough inquiry for me. I'll start. Keep talking. I'll fact check you.
The Cavs shot 39% from the field, 23.5% from 3. Shot pretty much the same amount of threes as the Magic. The Magic shot 50% from the field, 35% from 3. And the free throw battle, it's not like one team was getting to the line way more than the other. This was just like a hard-nosed basketball game of like the Magic coming out swinging and punching the Cavs in the mouth and clearly like doing what they needed to do to get the job done. I do want to go back and watch before I make any like super sweeping statements about this. I do want to go back and watch the first 2 games and kind of sink my teeth into what were the Cavs doing right that like really was just picking Orlando apart, and also on the flip side, what was Orlando doing wrong that they did right in this game? I saw some clips and some threads about it, and it looks like defensively the Magic were just their game plan was just better than it has been. Like you said, Wendell Carter Jr. being in the starting lineup reaped a lot of rewards. I saw him doing a lot of good stuff. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out over the next, however many games. Generally a 2-0 lead is difficult to come back from. But this is a situation where it's way more volatile to me just because of the nature of these two teams. Like very defensively slanted teams that like kind of rely on, oh, wow, they shot abnormally well from three or abnormally poorly from three. And that's for already shaky 3-point shooting teams.
Just to answer your query from earlier, they're actually tied for the lowest amount of points scored in a single game this postseason. You want to take a guess? What other team has scored 83 points in a postseason game? Detective's curse. The solution is right under your nose.
Is the Cavs?
No, it's the Magic, dude. Magic scored 83 points.
Oh, okay. So they've scored 83 twice.
No, so the Magic scored 83.
My wires are getting crossed. A lot of basketball is noodling around up here. So any closing thoughts on Cavs Magic? This is one that I think will be really interesting to see how it unfolds, because I think it could go a lot of different ways at this point. I'm interested to see how the Cavs come back in Game 4.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched Game 3 yet. I'm going to watch it right after this. I was watching, the real basketball games that were being played last night. So yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Let's talk about Darvin Ham, because Matt took some heat on the timeline last night. Let's hear your thoughts. Let's hear him out.
Oh, man, am I gonna? You know how like on like First Take they hire like an angry guy, like just to be like Stephen A. Smith's antithesis. He comes in, he has the take like everyone hates, and he's just on there. He's just like the punching bag. I feel like that's what my role is becoming here. I'm just like that angry guy who comes in. He's just like, man, why is everything like this? No, but I don't get it, man. I don't get why people hate him so much. I thought he's done okay. First of all, let's go back to all the stuff I heard. I watched the Lakers all season long. I know what they did with their lineups. You would think like conventional wisdom would tell you that D'Lo, Reeves, Rui, LeBron, and Davis, the lineup that kind of got you where you were in the Western Conference Finals last year, would be the lineup you just stick with all season. Well, that isn't actually true because Rui was coming off the bench for most of the postseason last year. They had Jared Vanderbilt in the starting lineup, so that's not necessarily how it works. But like people are forgetting what the regular season is supposed to be for. It's a laboratory for experimentation, right? So we've talked about this all season. What these coaches are trying to do is they're trying to find a balance. They're trying to find that perfect 5-man. That's why the Denver Nuggets keep winning all these games and keep beating it. They've mastered balance. They have the perfectly balanced 5-man lineup that's perfectly balanced between offense and defense and spacing and physicality and pace and shot making. Okay. And so what Darvin Ham's trying to do all year when he's putting together these lineups is like, I saw people talking about, he started a lineup of James, Vanderbilt, Rui, Reddish, Davis, right? And I'm like, okay, let's ask ourselves. The guy who's been in basketball for the last 30 years. He didn't ask himself why I would do this. You think he just did it to do it? No, he probably thought to himself, he's like, okay, what does it look like when we go Helio James and then all defense? Like, is that our identity? Are we like that good of a defense? Are we Minnesota Timberwolves level defense and James can carry us to like average level offense? Is that going to be our identity for this playoffs? And then he realized it's not, right? And then season goes on and Rui gets healthy, puts him in the lineup, and then D'Lo's cooking. Reeves is back to where he was before his stint with Team USA, right? And then Ham makes this decision, which I think is kind of ingenious. I thought it was a great call. He makes this decision and he's like, you know what? We're not going to be like, we're not a good enough defense to beat the Nuggets. So why don't we go all in on offense? We're going to play more 3-guard lineups. We're going to go Rui at the 3. We're going to, just kind of lean in on Davis. We're going to have a lot more shooting. You can look at the second half of the season. They're like top 5 in 3-pointers attempted, something like that. Spacing is much better. Their paint defense isn't as good, right? But their spacing's awesome now. They're scoring. And so Ham made this decision. He made a bet. He's like, you know what? The way we're going to beat this Denver team, you could tell he's preparing. We're going to have to try to outscore them because they are like, their offense is just, it has too many counters. It has the Jokic Murray thing that they don't really have a great answer for. We're not going to stop them. We're not a good enough defense to do that. I don't think any team, maybe the Timberwolves, but that's it. I don't think any team has that kind of defense. So I thought it was a good call. And then I'm watching these games. I thought he made some pretty nice. There was, in game 2, dude, the adjustment to put Davis on Jokic and get off the man spy thing, move Rui back to MPJ because LeBron, as you've pointed out over the years, I mean, over the season is not a good chaser defender. He was having problems with MPJ in game 1. So move Rui back onto him, put James on Gordon where he excels more with the strength. And 2.5 quarters into game 2, they looked great. They were playing awesome. And then what Malone did is he made a better adjustment because he has better personnel. What did Malone do? He put Jokic on Rui and put Gordon on Davis. And then he switched. He moved Murray off of Reeves because they knew they were using Reeves to make Murray the low man to attack that. Move Murray off of Reeves and put KCP there, I believe. And it worked. They won game 2, and then game 3 again. Like Denver just has more pieces they can play. And plus, in game 3, the Lakers had their worst shooting game of the last 3 months. Is that on him? Can he decide when the team goes 1 for 20 from 3? My thing is like, I don't think Ham's a top 15 coach in the NBA. I don't think he probably isn't a top 20 coach in the NBA. My thing is like, first of all, it's a lot of people are like, they think he's like a bumbling idiot. Like he's like a cartoon character and that he just does these stupid things and he doesn't have any reason for them. I would challenge you to ask Ham what his theory is for his lineups. I bet you he gives you a really good answer. Okay, I challenge you to do that. And then second, this Lakers team is legit good. They are good, dude. I'm telling you, all the other 6 teams in this playoffs, the Lakers could take 2 games from at least. All the other 6 teams. They're that good, right? They just ran into the Denver Nuggets, dude. Who I bet you maybe the Timberwolves because they're a great matchup for them and they know how to put them in the mud. But I think a lot of other, like every other team they see this postseason, he's going to have like a rude awakening. Like they are just amazing, dude. So I don't get it. I don't get what people want from Ham in this situation. And I don't get why like people are making these baseless critiques against him, to be honest.
Yeah. And I'll agree with you in that Darvin Ham's not a top 15 coach, probably not even top 20 coach. As far as I can tell. But I say that as far as I can tell, because if people have to remember, unless you're like a basketball coach, like you're watching these games as like a fan. Like, yes, you and I, like we do our best to educate ourselves, but like, I think we both like are man enough to admit, like we know enough to know we'll never know enough. And that's okay. Like there's not like a goal to strive for where we feel like we're just going to be able to give like the right take about every single thing. And so what I try to do is if there's a situation or like a topic of debate where I feel like I don't know enough to kind of chime in, then I'll just keep my mouth shut or kind of just be like, hey, like, you know, I see this, a lot of people having this opinion about this thing. Like, can I get specifics? Everyone's talking about Darvin Ham adjustments, Darvin Ham rotations. And what I'm really curious to those people who are saying that, what specific adjustments would you have had him make? Like, I think if you're going to criticize a coach for not making adjustments, I challenge everyone who kind of defaults to that when they criticize coaching. Be specific about what those criticisms are. Because, you know, saying a coach needs to make more adjustments is a catch-all phrase. And it's a situation where you don't need to use a catch-all phrase. Like, if you're going to say that a coach needs to make adjustments, you don't have to say, oh, they need to make more adjustments. You can say the adjustments that you think they should make. Like, that's okay. You can do that. And then we can have the discussion from there. But I think the problem is with Darvin Ham, we get a lot of the coaching discussion buzz phrases of like, they don't make adjustments. Their rotations are bad. They don't call timeouts. They lost the locker room. Those things may be true. I'm not saying Darvin Ham is good at making adjustments. I'm not saying Darvin Ham's rotations are good. I'm not saying Darvin Ham is good using timeouts. I'm not saying he didn't lose the locker room. All of those things may be true. But I'm saying from my perspective, I don't feel like I know enough about what goes on behind the scenes with the Lakers, Darvin Ham's coaching philosophies to be like, hey, he's a bad coach. Do I think Darvin Ham's a good coach? Not necessarily, but also like I've seen stuff about their rotations and I'm like, okay, let's look at some of the weak links from this series. Spencer Dinwiddie's been a guy who has gotten a lot of criticism. You don't play Spencer Dinwiddie. Who do you go to? They're running an 8-man. They ran an 8-man rotation last night.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go Max Christie? Max Christie is not.
We've talked about this player type. He's not going to do anything in the postseason.
No, he's young. He's not good right now. He may be good eventually, but right now, no, that's not a guy that you're going to be expecting contributions from in a postseason setting. Jackson Hayes. Well, okay. Let's go look at the third quarter of game 2 when the Nuggets set up for a pinch post action with Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, and Jackson Hayes tries to hedge the screen for Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon just fakes the dribble handoff and gets a free dunk. Like Jackson Hayes was very poor defensively. So Darvin Ham made an adjustment and said, you know what? Game 3, Jackson Hayes isn't playing. So there's an adjustment for all the people clamoring for adjustments. Maxwell Lewis. Do I need to say anything? Are you going to give Maxwell Lewis minutes in the postseason? When people get to the point when they're mad at a coach for not literally throwing poop at the wall to try and get something to stick, that's when I'm like, okay, this is not a coaching problem. This is a roster problem. The Lakers do not have a ton of options to really go to. Jared Vanderbilt's been hurt for a long time. Jared Vanderbilt is, like you said, the Lakers clearly had a philosophy of, okay, we're going to try and outscore the Nuggets. If you're trying to outscore the Nuggets, are you going to play Jared Vanderbilt? No. No. He does not do things that benefit your offense. And so you say, well, they should have been more defensively oriented. Okay. Well, we've seen throughout the regular season that the level that you have to play at to be able to be successful being defensively oriented against the Denver Nuggets is Minnesota Timberwolves level. That is the level of defense that you have to play to have a defensive-minded approach to the Nuggets in order to be successful. Do the Lakers, A, have the personnel to do that? No. B, do they have the prior history of success throughout the regular season so far to have that approach with the Nuggets? No. So why would you try to do that in the postseason? It literally does not make sense to do that. Like, that is a level of cognitive dissonance that you have to be able to sit there and say, okay, why didn't they just go more defensively slanted? I'll tell you why. It's the Denver Nuggets. What? And Darvin Ham can't make Spencer Dinwiddie be quicker with his rotations on defense. Darvin Ham can't make LeBron not shoot 1 of 6 from 3. And that's not me being a hater. I'm just, that's D'Angelo Russell, 0 of 6 from 3. Spencer Dinwiddie, 0 of 3 from 3. Taurean Prince, 1 of 4 from 3. I don't know how you can look at last game specifically and say this is all Darvin Ham's fault. The roster is a problem with this team. They are not a bad team. They are a team that can win games in the regular season, and they can win games against certain teams in the playoffs. But against the Denver Nuggets team, it's a bad matchup. It's a very bad matchup. Against the Oklahoma City Thunder, we're probably singing a completely different tune. That series is probably a very tightly contested series, if not a series that looks in favor of the Los Angeles Lakers. Sometimes it really does come down to, man, this team is a really bad matchup for this other team, and this team just simply is not very good. We can sit here and talk about theoretical adjustments all day, but at a certain point, you run out of things that you can try. You cannot just sit there and keep going, well, I'll make this adjustment now because they adjusted to fix the previous adjustment that I made. It's like, you can't infinitely make adjustments. You run out of things to do at a certain point because the other team is simply better. And that is something that has existed throughout all of basketball history forever. Sometimes there's just a better team in front of you.
Two things I want to point out real quick before we move on from this subject. I think you did an excellent job of kind of explaining all this stuff. Lakers went 5 for 27 last night, 18% from three. Since February 1st, since Ham made the adjustment to go more offense, go all in on offense, there's only one team in the NBA with a higher three-point percentage. It's by 0.6%. It's the Boston Celtics, the team with the best spacing in basketball. The Lakers have been a phenomenal three-point shooting team this whole season. I mean, since they made the adjustment to play their 2-guard, 3-guard lineups with Davis and LeBron and Rui. The theory of this series was if the Lakers are going to beat the Nuggets, they're going to need to shoot them out of the gym. And Ham put the guys out that were hitting. D'Lo was hotter than fish grease for the last 3 months of the season. Where was he? I'm not trying to play the blame game with D'Lo, but like, where was he? What does that have to do with Ham? He can't control that. And then the other thing is like back to like personnel limitations, right? I think that this was masterful by Malone. I've never seen a coach do anything like this. Maybe just because I haven't been able to, because I don't have that kind of trained eye to be able to pinpoint all the time. But like somewhere in the third quarter, Malone realized he's like, you know what? Why don't I just put Gordon? Why don't I put KCP on LeBron? Because KCP can kind of handle LeBron. And let me put Gordon on D'Lo because D'Lo's out on the perimeter. And then after every shot, Gordon can just leak out in transition and get easy buckets. Like he does it like five possessions in a row. He does, and maybe Ham should have called a timeout after the third possession. But like, what do you do when you're playing a team with arguably the best role player in the entire NBA? That's really what we're getting at with Aaron Gordon at this point. With the way he can defend, his cutting, his physicality, all that stuff. Like he is good enough to guard D'Lo, and then he's athletic enough to leak out and finish in transition, even though Lakers are doing a pretty decent job of getting back there, right? And I mean, Ham does all he can do, which is take D'Lo out of the game, puts Gabe Vincent in, and they readjust the lineup again. I don't know why he would do that, to be honest, why Malone would just not leave Gordon on Vincent, because I don't think Vincent poses any other problems that D'Lo wouldn't pose, but that's not my judgment to make. But it's just like a simple play like that cost them like, 6-8 points, and that was like the difference in the game. And there's really nothing Ham can do. That's just Malone has more skilled personnel, more versatile personnel. So I don't know. Whatever, man. Whatever. This series is over. I think by all intents and purposes, we can both agree.
Yeah. No team has ever come back from 3-0 in NBA history. And like, if a team's going to do it, it's not in a scenario like this, most likely. Obviously, anything can happen. We could be eating our words. Darvin Ham could be, just an absolute psychopath and pull off the impossible. Who knows? LeBron could do something that would blow everyone's mind. But the whole point of this discussion, I think, is coaching is a very tough thing to evaluate from an outsider's perspective, which is why I try not to make any sweeping claims about like a coach, especially when the conversation comes to like, this guy needs to lose his job. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's like a very bold thing to say about another human being. Like for me to sit here and say like, this guy needs to lose his job. I just don't feel comfortable making that sweeping assessment. Mm-hmm. Maybe I have in the past, and I just don't feel like the more I've learned, the less I feel comfortable making statements like that.
Also, speaking of eating words, can we go over to Knicks type Sixers?
Yeah. So what words should we eat? I think. Well, go ahead. You go first. I think Precious Achiuwa having to play 10 minutes in this game, Mitchell Robinson only playing 12 minutes because of injury. That's a big problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out S. He's a huge Precious can guard and beat guy. It didn't go too well for him, unfortunately. Honestly, no one was guarding Embiid though. Like that, like the way he was shooting, nobody's guarding that. He had one leg. He had one eye. And he was just like, you know what, forget it. Like this might make him better. It might like his calibration just might be better. Like, what if his hand-eye coordination is better with one eye? What if that's what it? Like he's just like this ridiculous shooter now. Greatest player that ever lived. But the thing I need to eat my words on before we talk about the X's and O's, like Maxi's just been phenomenal in this series. He's just been such a problem for them, man. Like when they put OG on him, there's a lot of times where he's just too fast for OG. I think OG's biggest limitation, in so much that it is a limitation for a defender of his magnitude, but he can't deal with like the 99th percentile speedy, shifty, slippery guys like Maxey, right? And Maxey's been able to get by him plenty. He's able to finish the rim once they got bigger guys. Same thing with Hart. He's been able to get by Hart when he's had him. When he has Deuce, he's too big. He's kind of too big for Deuce. He's a little bit too tall. He can, like, Deuce will stay with him, but it won't really affect Maxi's floater. And then I think the thing that's really impressed me is just how well he's handled these late switches. They've been doing a lot of late switches. It seems like that's what they're just going to run with from here on out on these Maxi and Embiid pick and rolls. So that what that means is, say it's OG guarding Maxi and Hartenstein guarding Embiid, and they run a pick and roll. OG will start to kind of, navigate the ball screen, and then he'll call for like a veer. I think the call is veer back. I don't know what they shout at each other. Again, this is just something we don't know, but he'll like peel onto Embiid and switch onto him, and then Hartenstein will take Maxi. And then what Maxi will do is he knows now that since their best rebounder is no longer in the paint, the smartest thing to do would be to take a pull-up jumper because it gives you 2 opportunities at scoring. 1, a 3-point shot because you're on a guy who needs to give you space, and then 2, your team has a higher percentage of getting an offensive rebound because the big man is no longer in the paint. And Maxi, he's been just doing a really good job of making sure to keep taking those pull-up threes. But also he just won't stop missing them. Like, he's been such a good scorer. When I say eating my words, I don't think he's had like a crazy playmaking series. My biggest gripe with him is I never thought he was like this incredible on-ball passer. I think that the Nurse does a great job of simplifying the offense to account for that. But I think the thing I'm realizing now is just like this guy's just a much better scorer than even I could have imagined. But yeah, he's been awesome.
Yeah. The other thing that really stuck out to me, I don't know if we'll see Buddy Hield again for the rest of this series. Buddy Hield played 3 minutes, 57 seconds, and then Cam Payne got 15 minutes, 40 seconds, and did everything that he could possibly do with those minutes. He had 11 points, 4 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3. Got a rebound, 3 assists, 2 blocks. From a guy that you're playing for 15 minutes a game in the playoffs, I feel like that's pretty solid production. I feel like you're very comfortable with that, especially in a Nick Nurse kind of coach team where, Tyrese Maxey's playing 41 minutes, Kelly Oubre is playing 38, Joel Embiid's playing 40. It's like, yeah, you only need 1 or 2 15-minute a game guys to just pop out there real quick and give the guys a break. So we'll see if that Buddy Hield, Cameron Payne switch off kind of plays out throughout the entire series. Cause I think that was you talk about adjustments and a coach, adjusting rotations. I think that was a good move by Nick Nurse. It definitely paid dividends.
One thing, well, first of all, by the way, Melton was healthy, right? He was eligible to play tonight, wasn't he?
Yeah. DNP coach's decision.
DNP. So that's fascinating to me, just because I've like pinpointed him all season as being kind of like an important part of this team. I think he's a very underrated role player. The one thing that like kind of was weird to me. So the Knicks, this was Brunson's best game of the series. He looked super comfortable in pick and roll, but I think the drawback to that was like he's looking comfy in pick and roll and all that stuff, but he was looking so comfy he didn't need to mismatch hunt. Like he was just taking the matchup as is. Like if Batum's on me, cool. Oubre's on me, cool. Whatever. And that was kind of allowing Payne to like be on the court without paying any tax. He's able to hide on Deuce, which is not really. And then when Deuce was able to get the ball, like he wasn't really burning Payne. So I think the big thing to look for in Game 4 is can the Knicks like make Philly pay for having Payne on the floor, because that's the reason Payne wasn't in this series to begin with. Payne's a very nice offensive player. He gives you a nice little jolt in the non-maxi minutes. But the thing is, like, he has like a legitimate case as the worst defender of any player in these playoffs that's getting minutes right now. And the Knicks just didn't make them pay for it. So I want to know how they're going to do that in balance, like the fact that Brunson's so comfy now. One thing I will say to you, I want to know, because I was watching this game, maybe I wasn't pitching my fastball in terms of like my analysis, but I watched this game and my big kind of takeaway here is like, I didn't see anything crazy tactically going on. I think that both teams are at this point in the series where they're like, let's just go blow for blow with our pet actions. Like Philly's like, okay, Maxey and Embiid, we're going to spam this pick and roll. We figured you're going to late switch. We figured it out. We've got that. And then on the other end, like Brunson's like, I'm super comfy in pick and roll now. Let me just work with that. We don't even need to mismatch hunt anymore. Obviously, there's plays being run. There's the ATOs and all that stuff. But like, at least, especially in that like second half, that's all I was seeing is like pet action after pet action. blow for blow. There's obviously a lot of 3-pointers being hit in this game. Did you see anything specifically that kind of like, turned the tide in this series?
Not really. I was in the same boat as you. Like, I was really looking for stuff, like trying to find something that one team did that just like really shifted the tides. I mean, there's obvious stuff of just like guys missing shots, but for the most part, yeah, it's like, okay, we have our approach. We felt each other out. We kind of know what the other team is going to do. I think the Knicks had their hands tied a little bit with the Mitchell Robinson injury. I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on. He left in a walking boot. Very, very, very concerning because I have to be careful how I word this. Certain players are allowed to guard Embiid without getting called for fouls. And certain players are not. Mitchell Robinson is one of the players who is allowed to guard Embiid without getting, absolutely destroyed by foul calls. I say that he had 3 fouls last night in the 12 minutes that he played, so he was definitely getting called for him last night. But I think throughout the series thus far, he's done a pretty good job of not getting called for fouls. I don't know if the league's officiating team was told to, hey, these are not getting called and they probably should be, so now you need to start calling these, or if it was just like a weird. I will say this. This is an outlier free throw shooting game for Joel Embiid by anybody's standard. He got 21 free throw. That's a lot. Like, if you look at the league leader in free throw attempts this year, it's like, what, 11, 12, 13 maybe? Like, it doesn't usually get higher than that. Joel Embiid took 21 free throws. That's a ton. That's like the 50-point game of free throws. And lo and behold, Joel Embiid had 50 points. So I am curious to see if that is a trend, because I'm curious. I want to see what the last 2 games, how many free throws he took, because it wasn't nearly that many, I don't think. Let's see. Thursday, Tuesday, Monday. How many did he take on
Saturday.
Monday? Yeah, so Monday Joel Embiid took 12. That's probably around on par with his average this year.
And then on Saturday, he took 12 on Saturday too.
So big difference. So I'm curious if this is just a change in officiating approach where this will be called more aggressively towards Embiid, where he's getting to the line way more, where like marginal contact that the Knicks have gotten away with in the past, they maybe won't get away with anymore. And this is not like a diss on the 76ers of like, oh, I hate Embiid, like getting to the free throw line, blah, blah, blah. This is something that you have to deal with in the playoffs. Like, officiating will change throughout the course of a series, and it's just something you have to handle and change your approach if necessary. I don't know if the Knicks will. I think they'll probably just continue to live and die by how they're doing things, and hopefully not get called for a ton of fouls. Tom Thibodeau had a quote after the game where he was like, I'm going to send in the clips like I always do. And that's real quick. That's something that every team does. They send clips to the officiating headquarters or whatever, and they'll say, hey, here are all the fouls that were called that we think shouldn't have been called. Here are all the no calls that we think should have been called. We're not happy about it. Every team does that after every single game. Every single game of the playoffs, that's happening. Tom Thibodeau was like, we're going to send the clips in like we always do, and they're going to say that it's marginal contact, and then they'll keep giving Joel Embiid free throws for what was considered marginal contact for us. Statements like that may get you a fine, but the reason coaches say stuff like that is because the league doesn't like that in the sense that like that makes them look very bad. It raises a lot of eyebrows and brings a lot of unwanted scrutiny in certain aspects. So sometimes it pays off really well for the team that kind of airs those grievances publicly. Sometimes it backfires. So I'll be interested to see. That's that's not the story of this game. But it was definitely a factor and helped the 76ers win. So we'll see if that's a continuing trend. But the 76ers, I thought, had a solid game plan. This obviously they got an unreal performance from Joel Embiid, and the Mitchell Robinson injury is definitely going to hurt the Knicks if he's not able to come back. So
my one thing I'll be interested in, and this is going to sound like kind of messed up, just because like you never want to exploit somebody's injuries, but I'm curious because at least from my recollection, I haven't gone back and looked how many times, but they didn't send a ton of extra help at Embiid. They were kind of going one-on-one, letting their bigs kind of handle it. I wonder how much extra help they'll send these next couple games, just because with him kind of being like, I wonder if they'll play it. Like they're like, okay, so this eye is bothering him. Why don't we send the double from that direction? You know what I mean? Like start strategically sending help like that and making it harder on him. Now, obviously these NBA players, they're not actually like, a lot of times they don't actually like see the people. They just understand like the spacing alignment and know where people are supposed to be. So I don't know how beneficial that would be, but I'm curious to see how New York approaches that moving forward, how much they look to kind of exploit that. But I think we're at the point in this series where there's like two really good teams. They're just going to keep punching each other in the mouth until one of them gets 4.
Yeah, this is like we're getting into the final round of the Justin Gaethje Max Holloway fight where they're just going to go blow for blow. Shout out to my UFC fans that listen to the podcast.
Great reference. I was perusing Twitter while you were talking just for a second, and I saw that Giannis has been downgraded to out for tonight's game. I also know Middleton is dealing with some injuries. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but do you want to get into that Pacers-Bucks series? Because this one's really starting to fascinate me.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear what do you got? What do you got on this series so far?
Well, I mean, if you could go back, I just watched the game when we recorded on Monday, and I was kind of like, man, this Pacers team, like they just look so young. They don't have any bench. Middleton looks awesome, all this stuff. Of course, there's the big shooting variance, elephant in the room. And when you've only seen one game of the series, it's been majorly affected by shooting variance. You kind of never know how much of a role that variance plays in the series. Turns out it plays a huge role because the Pacers hit their threes this game and they looked significantly better. They just they look faster. They look younger. I think one of the things they did really well was just pushing the pace more, playing with more pace. They shortened their rotation, which I thought was brilliant. Ben Shepherd played an incredible game. I think for his standing in the draft, what he's done this season, he was basically their sixth man. No Jalen Smith. No Isaiah Jackson, no Doug McDermott. They're like, forget that. These guys are just not going to play in this series. And then the big thing is Pascal Siakam. I will say this is a great series for his skills. So I'm sure he looks a lot better than he probably is in the league hierarchy. But they just, without Giannis, they don't have anything for him. It's become pretty apparent. Even in game 1 when they were getting their shit kicked in, like he looked awesome. But they tried Lopez. He's too fast for Lopez. Lopez has to give him space. He's too good of a mid-range shooter for that to happen. Tried Portis. Enough said there. And then the thing about when Portis guards him too is Lopez has to guard Turner. And Turner's such a great pick and pop threat. You know what that does to drop coverage. So that creates problems. If you try anybody smaller, they have to send extra help, and that's open shots. I'm getting really, really nervous. Should I give a little bit of inside scoop that I might have?
Let's hear it.
Giannis isn't as close to coming back as I would like the broadcast crew will say, like during broadcast, at least from the people I've spoken to about the subject who might be a little bit more privy to information than you or I or broadcast crew. I don't think if they lose this game, he'd be coming back for game 4. You know what I mean? And that's kind of
it's not like a situation where you press the Giannis button and you're like, okay, we need to bring him back now.
I don't think the Bucks are like, we could probably go one more game without him. It's not like, I don't think it's like what I think that happened with the Clippers situation where the Clippers are kind of like, we could probably go this one game without Kawhi, or like what was going on last year with Bucks and Heat. But yeah, I don't think it's that kind of thing. And that's all those factors. The fact that Pacers just look faster, more athletic than them. It's worrisome.
Yeah. I when that injury happened, that was like, ooh, it looked like a pretty meaningful injury, not just like he got a contusion, which is a really fancy medical term for a bruise, basically. I'm definitely, I think to a certain extent, the Bucks can drag this out and extend the series. Cause we talk about shooting variance. The Bucks still shot very well from three this game. They shot 40% from three. They hit the shots that they needed to hit. Yeah. And the Pacers were still able to, and Pascal Siakam doing his thing to the level that he did in this game. I mean, he took 23 shots. He made 16 of them. He shot 70% from the field, made 3 of his threes of the 4 that he took. If he's playing like that and you don't have the personnel to account for that, you either need Giannis back or it's going to be a long series that you don't have a great shot of winning. And bear in mind, I still don't think we've seen the best of Tyrese Halliburton yet. We've gotten relatively underwhelming games by his usual standards. He had, 12 points, 12 assists. He only shot 40% from the field. 3 of his 4 made shots were from 3. We know what he's capable of when he's firing on all cylinders. And so I think there's still the possibility that he gets more comfortable in this series as it goes on, especially if Giannis isn't back. And with Siakam playing how he is, with Turner playing how he is, this series was already looked at as a bad matchup for the Bucks, and the Pacers are definitely showcasing why right now, especially because Giannis isn't back. I do think things are probably a lot different with Giannis back because you have an answer that you can throw at Siakam in theory. But yeah, if they don't have him back for game 4 or game 3, definitely, I don't think they'll have him back for game 3, but game 4.
No, game 3's been rolled out.
Okay. Well,
yeah, but
there's that. Yeah,
I mean, it's just, I don't know, dude. The thing about Halliburton, I've been trying to pay extra attention to that. And it's weird because, you wish he'd be more aggressive, but I think that's, Halliburton's just wired to make the right play. He's always wired to make the right play all the time. And I just watch some of these games. I'll watch him go into pick and roll. I'm like, okay, he made the right pass. I don't know what else anyone wants him to do there. It's just weird because he doesn't – I don't think he'll ever be a guy who puts up huge gaudy postseason numbers, even when he is healthy. I think he's just a guy who capitalizes. He's the master of taking what the defense gives him.
He does seem. I will say he does seem like the kind of guy. We saw this during the play-in tournament. If you get him fired up, he can kind of flip a switch. But I feel like it takes a lot for him to kind of get into that mode. And I hate to do the whole he has that dog in him, but if you've ever played basketball before, if somebody gets you fired up, you'll potentially play better just because you kind of lock in and you're like, oh, I'm pissed off. I'm going to start making stuff happen. And certain players have that kind of mentality. And I think Tyrese Halliburton has that zone that he can get into.
Yeah. I mean, it's the thing is people think that guys like me and you who's data, we don't believe at all in psychology. There's a difference between there is a psychological element. There's a Kobe Bryant, he lives for big moments. Anthony Edwards lives for big moments. There's a difference between that and then saying oh, this guy paints his nails. He's probably not good at a sport. There's that's 2 different things, but yeah, I agree. And then the other thing, I just need to give a hat tip. I kind of already did, but game 1, Nembhard, Nesmith, and Shepherd looked like the lights were too bright for them. They dimmed them, man. They dimmed those lights. They looked good. All 3 of them looked really good in game 2. Who do you think is going to win this series, though?
I'm going to put an asterisk on this. Asterisk. I don't know. How do you actually say that? I don't know how it's actually spelled.
I think you had it right the last time. Asterisk.
Okay.
Asterisk.
Asterisk. Okay, we don't need to. Okay. Point being, no Giannis, or I'll even throw the caveat on it of they don't have Giannis back until game 5 or later. I think Pacers probably win this series. Now, if Giannis is back for game 4, I think we get a 7-game series, and this is a toss-up.
Okay. Interesting. Great. Let's just get the elephant out of the room then, because we've done 4. Let's get this easy one out. Miami Heat, won game 2, shot 53% from 3. Do we need to say anything right now, or can we just like keep going? Have you watched? I
watched that game. Yeah.
You watched it, like scouted it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have like too many crazy thoughts because like the Celtics didn't play great, but they only lost by 10.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like this was a blowout. The Heat had to shoot 53% from 3 to win by 10. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
The Celtics shot, it's not like the Celtics had bad shooting variance. They shot 38% from 3. The Celtics have, this is what people have to understand. The Celtics have a philosophy and they trust, and you and I have both said this before at different times. The Celtics understand that every now and then, living and dying by their philosophy, they're going to lose games. But they believe over the course of a 7-game series, they're going to win all of the games that they need to win the series based on their philosophy. So they don't care that their philosophy led to the Heat shooting 53%. Will they maybe be a little more aggressive in this next game, running the Heat off the 3-point line and maybe being a little bit more aggressive and intentional with their closeouts? Because I will agree, you can find clips of it. If you watch the game, it was visibly apparent. The Celtics were a little lazy with their closeouts. And I think if they're a little bit more aggressive with their closeouts next game, the Heat probably don't shoot 53% from 3. But Eric Spoelstra saw the weakness, saw the Celtics being very lazy closing out, not guarding out to the 3-point line very much, and they capitalized. They did a great job. They threw some zone at the Celtics, and it works. We know how deadly they can be when they start throwing junk defenses at you. But that being said, the Celtics still got a lot of the looks that they like. It's not like they shot poorly from 3. It's just, you're not going to beat it. You don't beat a team shooting 53% from, it doesn't happen. I guarantee you, if you go back throughout the entirety of NBA history, if you look at the records of teams that shot 53% from 3 on like more than, 20 attempts in a game, I guarantee you those teams are like close to undefeated. It's incredibly hard to lose when you shoot a significant amount of threes and you shoot 53%. It's incredibly hard to lose. It just, I doubt it happens very often. I'm probably going to look that up after this podcast because that's got to be a crazy record.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know how you do that. I mean, I guess you could probably
you can do it on StatHead. Fill some air. I'm going to see if I can find that.
Okay. So, one other thing I'll just say it's funny to me is like, the media. I think Spoelstra's a genius. I think he's the best coach in the NBA. But like, it's funny. People are like, man, Spo did it again. Like he can't. Like it's back to the Ham thing. He can't like make his guy shoot 53% from 3. You know that, right? Like he's not. It has nothing to do with him as a man. Like they're insane shooting against the Celtics, and it's like it's the same thing with Ham. Yeah. So I think if they win Game 3, I still probably won't watch this. They'd have to win Game 3 and 4 in Miami, and then I'd be like, okay, I got to watch all 4 of these games. Now I'm like back in, but I really hope that doesn't happen. It'd just be such a drag. So we got that. So we have 3 more series left. I think we have Suns, T-Wolves, Mavericks, Clippers, and then Pelicans, Thunder. Let's start because I feel like I have the least to say about Pelicans, Thunder. What is it?
I just looked this up, and it's insane. I don't know what the cumulative record is, but if you look at it, it is. I can count on 2 hands the amount of losses that there are for teams that shot 53% from 3. And that's not even factoring in volume. I'm sure if I change the volume to like, but I will change the volume because I'm very curious about this. We'll change the volume to how many attempts do you think is reasonable? Let's say 20.
Yeah, 20 is a good number because that kind of gets you in the space ball era.
Yeah. So this shouldn't take too long, but the amount of wins was mind-boggling. It was overwhelmingly. It was probably a 90% win percent. This is hilarious. Two losses, 3.
Can you see how many wins, or is it?
They're 60. I think it's 59-5.
Okay.
Teams are probably 59-5.
That's something. That's math. Math is interesting. Math is a sport.
Yeah. You don't lose shooting 53%. It doesn't happen. And we can tweak those filters more and more and, make that look even better for the Heat. But yeah, we'll see if it happened last year. They shot a ridiculous percentage from three. So it could happen again. We don't know, but obviously we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the next series. Which one do you want to cover? Do you want to go Dallas?
Yeah. Let's go Pelicans first, just because that one's, I feel like I'm quick there.
Yeah, we can be quick.
But, the Thunder's played good. Like they hit their shots this time. They hit their shots. They're a pretty scary team when they hit their shots. They have good shooting personnel. The big takeaways for me were, I don't think that JV's style of physicality is as much of a game changer as we initially believed. He got off to a really hot start. I think he scored on the Pelicans' first 6 possessions or something crazy like that. But after that, he was pretty much neutralized. And the Thunder were just like side to side ball movement. Let's make him move around as much as possible. Completely took advantage of him. Shea, I know I feel like I keep like hesitating to give him praise, but like I just want to monitor something because he only took 4 shots at the rim in this game. He normally takes like 7 or 8. So the Pelicans were just selling out to make sure he didn't get to the rim. He was hitting them with his step backs and all that stuff. He was hitting them at a crazy amount, like crazy level. I would just want to know what it looks like if he's not doing that. But he was otherwise masterful. Jalen Williams, incredible 2-way game. He was incredible. The only other note that was like kind of interesting to me is that the Pelicans offense just looks smoother when CJ runs it than BI. Plays with way more pace. He's able to create better looks. He looks a lot more comfortable. But overall, this is just like the Thunder looked like the championship caliber team they were dubbed as heading into this postseason.
Yeah, this was the game that I needed to see from OKC where I'm like, okay, they handled business against a team that they should beat. No offense to the Pelicans. And I love the Pelicans. I've sung their praises all year when healthy. I think they're a very, very good team. They got dealt a crummy hand and definitely have some questions to answer this offseason. But yeah, they ran a ridiculous rotation of how many? Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they ran a 10-man rotation. And it wasn't like a 10-man rotation of, okay, we have 2 or 3 specific lineups that we're going to run. It was a 10-man rotation of like, no, we're going to have 7 different lineups that we're throwing at you, which I don't necessarily love. I'm really big on lineup optimization, but again, this is a thing where I'm like, okay, a professional coach probably knows a little bit better than me. So I just kind of have to trust, especially when it leads to a freaking 22 point win. Can't really complain that much about you not going super lineup optimization on it. But yeah, the Thunder did what they needed to do. They made their shots. They made the shots that they created that were good shots, and they hit some difficult ones. And that's why this game was as big of a blowout as it was. I'm kind of out of things that the Pelicans can really do. They can start going into their bench and being like, oh, maybe we start playing Dyson Daniels more than 7 minutes. Maybe they start playing Jordan Hawkins more than 5 minutes in garbage time. Maybe they try to throw some different looks. But even then, we talked about this earlier. Eventually, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. 3 quick things I want to say. One is like going back to me and your fixation with these non-shooting wings forwards. Thought it was interesting. Dyson Daniels before the fourth quarter only played in like end of quarter defensive possessions. And I think that's kind of concerning that like Najee Marshall plays like 25 minutes in this game and Dyson Daniels can't get on the floor, which kind of that really, these last 2 games have really just taken my expectations like away for like Dyson Daniels' long-term ceiling, whether that's right or not. It's kind of where I'm at. Another thing, Pelicans and Thunder both pride themselves on turning you over, and the Thunder just did a way better job of it. And I think that's a byproduct of the Thunder just having so much more ball handling than the Pelicans, where it's like BI and CJ are kind of like the only guys who can really bring the ball up and dictate and all that stuff. And then the last thing is Pelicans have been the luckiest team in the league this year for the last 2 years when it comes to opponent 3-point shooting. And we might be seeing the limitations of this defense now when that's not happening, when they're not getting as lucky. And I know there's the whole like, oh, the way they contest shots is like they leave the right guys open, all that. There's been studies run that's not exactly what's happening. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I think this is going to be a pretty simple series for OKC.
Yeah, we as always, the caveat, we'll see. Anything can happen, but some things are starting to take a clearer shape. You want to go to Clippers Mavs because I feel like you've probably got some stuff you want to get off your chest.
Do I? Actually, can we go? This one's the most, I think, controversial one, especially between me and you. You want to go Suns, Timbos? Let's
do it.
Okay, good. Sorry. What?
No, you're fine. What are your thoughts? Because you came into this series kind of being like, I still think the Suns match up better. How do you feel now? Do you still what has changed, if anything, is what I'm asking.
Well, I just didn't realize, and this is maybe my fault. This is my big oversight. I didn't realize that they could just throw Karl Anthony Towns and Kevin Durant and then move. I think it's who do they have guarding him now? They have Anthony Edwards guarding Beal. I didn't know they could just do that. I didn't know the Timberwolves were like that. Like they could just like, you know what? Forget the Conley Beal matchup. We don't actually have to live with this. Like we can just put Cat on Durant and it works. Like, I've always been the kind of guy who's like, there's more nuance to Gobert debate than, drop coverage. They murder him in the playoffs and all that stuff. Like I always knew there was more to it. I think that he was put in the worst possible situation in Utah for that kind of thing in the playoffs. But yeah, dude, they've stifled this Suns team. Like there's like, and my thing was like, they would, my theory was between Beal, like just being a mismatch problem and the Suns just being like an incredible tough shot making team. I figured it would neutralize a lot of like because I feel like the Timberwolves would do this to everybody. They kind of do this to everybody. They kind of suffocate you, make it hard on you, make it hard for you to get to the rim and stuff. And like they would be like, I think they would be more at least I thought they'd be more problematic for a team like OKC who like really relies on getting into the paint and all that stuff. Whereas like the Suns, like we already don't get there anyways. We'll just jump shot you to death. But like the point of attack defense has been incredible. Chris Finch, man, one thing that's subtle that I've loved about him in the series is like when he takes Gobert off the floor and puts Naz in, so they lose defense, right? But they gain offense. So what he does is counterbalances it by taking Conley off the floor and putting Nickeil Alexander-Walker on the floor as well. And it just gives like the lineup, like it doesn't change the balance of the lineup. It's just like things like that I just love in a coach. I also didn't think he would have the kahunas to pull Kyle Anderson from the series. And that's paid dividends.
He did it.
Yeah, he did it. That's paid dividends. I was thinking about it, like the Gobert thing, right? The four myths of Gobert. I wrote about this morning. There's four myths about him, right? One is that drop coverage doesn't work in the playoffs. It's not true if you have good screen navigation. Two is that he can't try other coverages. We've seen him literally do every coverage in the book at this point in the series. And then three is that he can't guard on the perimeter. And he's switched on Kevin Durant more times than I ever thought possible. And he's just like stifled him, right? So those three are good. The last one is that the reason that 5-out lineups work against him is because he can't make them pay for it on the other end of the court. He's not good enough at like crashing the offensive glass, not good enough a roller, not good enough a postman, hunting these mismatches and all that stuff. And Suns have not really gone to that small ball lineup. I'm curious now, especially with like the injuries they've incurred and just like guys just not kind of working out for them, if they would try that more in game 3. I think that's and honestly, like it's either, and I know I've been a little bit more quick to put teams to bed than you have been, I think in this podcast, but like, I think just the way the Timberwolves are defending right now, that if they don't throw the small ball pitch and it doesn't work, or if they don't just like get red hot from like mid range and 3, like I just have a hard time seeing the Suns score enough points to win this series.
This is something that I looked at the other day that kind of blew my mind. We've seen the fourth quarter Suns play out over the entire season, and like I kind of had in the back of my mind, like, okay, this is a regular season thing. Maybe things will change in the playoffs, which I wasn't like saying that things would change, but I had just the possibility. I was like, okay, maybe this will get better in the postseason when things are a lot more intentional and a lot more focused and a lot more narrowed in scope. No, that has not been the case. The fourth quarter Suns are still the fourth quarter Suns. In this game, they had a 91 offensive rating. No. Excuse me. They had a they did. They had a 91 offensive rating and a 117.4 defensive rating in the fourth quarter of that game. Part of that is garbage time. Bear in mind, about 2 minutes, maybe a little bit more. Some of that was garbage time, but this team, whether it's a mental thing, which I think some of it is, maybe I think a big part of it is the Timberwolves ramp up a lot in the fourth quarter. The Timberwolves actually, I looked at the numbers for this so far in the playoffs. The Timberwolves have actually ramped up throughout the game. They get better as the game goes on. They're kind of doing the Denver Nuggets thing of like, okay, we're feeling things out early on. Maybe we come out a little lackluster and then we lock in. We sit up in our chair a little bit and lean forward. The Suns, it is such a trend at this point for this team to be bad in fourth quarters that I'm like, this is part of your identity. You don't shake part of your identity in the middle of a playoff series. It's who you are. This is a flawed team. The offense has a lot of glaring issues, especially I think a big part of this series has been the Timberwolves' length. And when you have good ball, I kind of use quote unquote good ball handlers because I think Devin Booker's handle has been suspect in this series. I think Kevin Durant, you've seen the limitations of a quote unquote 7-footer as a lead ball handler against length like this. Bradley Beal, who I think probably is the best ball handler on this team, has even struggled against Anthony Edwards in his length. And I've kind of always been someone who's a little bit shaky on Anthony Edwards' current defensive contributions as opposed to his theoretical defensive contributions, where like, yes, eventually he can be unreal defensively. He has all the tools, he has all the potential, and we see flashes of it, but on a consistent basis, sometimes that doesn't always show through. But right now in this series, I think that Anthony Edwards, we're seeing that all defensive capability due in large part to Bradley Beal struggling against his length and Anthony Edwards capitalizing on it. I think I'm going to speculate a little bit here, but I think the scout by the Timberwolves on the Suns' big three, their tendencies, I think they've scouted the crap out of this team. I think they have like gotten down to the minutia of like, okay, when Kevin Durant like crosses to his left, this is what he's going to do. Make sure you get your hand in the cookie jar and grab it. I think they have scouted to that extent because the turnovers that they're forcing, like they'll run pin downs for Kevin Durant on the weak side and or like zoom actions to try and get handoffs off. And, Nickeil Alexander-Walker will be able to reach in there and know exactly what's coming. I think they've scouted this team into oblivion to where they just know, like, yeah, player X does this, do Y. It's just down to the nitty gritty at this point. And that's a really hard thing to overcome because you don't change your tendencies as a player in a playoff series. It's not something that happens. Generally, you don't change your tendencies as a player ever. They're just part of who you are. They're part of your identity, and your team has to adjust accordingly. So I don't know. I'm kind of at the point now where it's going to take unreal performances to overcome the just scheme discrepancy and personnel discrepancy. It's lopsided. It's very, very lopsided.
And just like, I mean, we talked about the role players thing, dude. Timberwolves role players are just so much better. Like just Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid are like better than everybody on the Suns except for the big three and maybe Nurk. Like they're just having those two on the bench is just so huge. Both of them giving like 20, 25 minutes a night. The one thing I'll say, well, first of all, back to your scouting thing. I think it's easier to exploit a guy's tendencies when they play so methodically. Like, I mean, Halliburton, you could scout Halliburton's tendencies. He plays fast. Like, how, okay, you know he plays fast, but you also have to be fast to deal with it. You know what I mean? Whereas like these guys are kind of like, jab step, rip through, crossover, etc. It's like all this methodical stuff. And when you have length, you can disrupt that. One thing I'll say, just more overarching kind of, for our top 25 pod we're doing that I keep saying you're going to do, even though you haven't ever agreed to it, but
I'll do it here. This is me on record saying I'll do it.
Good. I just haven't been that impressed with Anthony Edwards I've been really impressed with his defense. Offensively, I feel like everyone's like a lot more excited about him than I have been, to be honest. And I don't know. That's just something overarching. I don't know what it means, because the fact that I'm seeing, and another thing I'll say is this series is a good defensive series for Ant, because Phoenix doesn't run a bunch of off-ball stuff, so he can't really fall asleep that much. It's a lot of that on-ball, which is his specialty. But he's looked really good on defense, and then offensively, I'm just like, when is he going to grow as a decision maker? Because I think on the stat sheet, it looked like he had a good decision making game, but I just didn't, process wise, I didn't feel it.
I do feel like he handled double teams a little bit better in this game. Mm-hmm. I think he was a little quicker to make the decisions. It didn't always lead directly to points, but it got the defense in rotation and allowed them to capitalize on the Suns sending those double teams or hard hedges at him. Mm-hmm. The shot, he had some crummy decisions. I think a lot of his issues were driving into traffic when he definitely should not have been. That was my biggest complaint, was dude, mm-hmm. You don't need to do this. In the first quarter, it was really bad. And then I think he cleaned it up a little bit. That being said, the shot selection was still suspect. And I think that's just something that will be the swing factor with Anthony Edwards, is with a tough shot maker like that in a big kind of, not necessarily heliocentric, but kind of you're running things through him. It'll be sometimes the shot's not going to fall. I think fortunately for the Timberwolves, they had Jaden McDaniels dropping 25 points on Kevin Durant's head. That was yeah,
okay, I feel bad we haven't even mentioned him yet, dude. He was phenomenal.
There's that clip that I love where Anthony Edwards is they have Kevin Durant, we have Jaden McDaniels, and Jaden McDaniels, Kevin Durant in this game.
It was crazy. He does not like those dudes. He does not. I don't think he likes many people, to be honest. He always getting into it with people. Anthony Edwards
too, but you talk about guys who have that dog in them. Jaden McDaniels has that dog in him. He seems quiet. If you watch games, he seems quiet, but that dude has a temper. And it's caused problems. He punched a wall and broke his hand last year.
I was gonna say, you think he's a calm dude. I'm until he punches the stanchion and breaks his hand. Yeah, cool. So we're both Timberwolves pretty much. 5 games.
I think so. Yeah,
5-6 games. I could see a world where they do the thing they did against Denver last year, and Booker scores 52 games in a row, and it's a 6-game series. But I don't know. This last one, I think I have a feel for it, but at the same time, I don't know anymore. Kawhi Leonard comes back in game 2, and after pretty much handling the Dallas Mavericks in game 1, the Clippers lose game 2 to the Dallas Mavericks. There is some shooting variance. I think there's a 15% discrepancy, which is about the same discrepancy that the Clippers had against the Mavericks in game 1. So it kind of evens out. What were your main takeaways?
Tim Hardaway Jr. played 6 minutes in this game. And I mean, this is not the biggest takeaway, but that's about as close as you can get to a DNP. Same with Dante Exum. Him and Dante Exum played 6 minutes.
The Exum one was shocking. I thought he was going to get more run than that.
And that's not to say Josh Green was the next highest amount of minutes with 14. That's not to say he played overwhelmingly good. He was a -6 in 14 minutes played. Didn't make a shot. He got some boards. He got a lot of rebounds. He got 7 rebounds and filled up the stat sheet in other areas. 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block. So he definitely had some positive contributions. But I think we saw the Mavericks are probably going to roll with Derrick Jones Jr., PJ Washington, Gafford, Irving, Doncic, Lively, Kleba, Green. I think that's probably going to be their 8-man rotation for the rest of the series, if I had to guess. And we may see some sprinkling ins of some Tim Hardaway Jr.'s, Dante Exum's, maybe Jaden Hardy's here and there. But more than likely, I feel like we saw the Mavericks lock into that 8, and they're going to roll with that. And really, it's kind of more of a, it's a little bit less than that because Daniel Gafford only played 9 minutes in this game. So I guess my question to you is this just another extended 7-game Mavericks Clippers series, or is this one team has figured out a clear advantage over the other, and now it's going to be slanted in favor of one team or the other?
Well, I had a tweet the other day where it's like, you watch a game, you watch a team lose, and you're like more convinced they're going to win the series after they lost. That's kind of how I felt about the Clippers. So I'm like watching this game, and I'm like, man, they just have such better personnel. They have I just trust their role players so much. Kawhi looked like pretty solid, outside of the rust and stuff, but I didn't see anything really worrisome. I was just like, and then like their low man defense is like so great with Kawhi, Paul George. They're like, how could Dallas even run like a regular pick and roll? And I'm like, man, if they just hit shots at a regular rate, I don't see. And then I'm watching Dallas. I'm like, they shortened their rotation up, but I don't even like the way they shortened it. Like Derek Jones Jr. played 30 minutes. I just don't see him being a viable guy in a series. I'd rather have Exum on the court. I wish I saw more Josh Green. I wish the theory of Josh Green was actually happening in practice, because I feel like that would be really valuable. Credit to PJ Washington. He played the game he needed to play. Kleber played the game he needed to play. Dallas went small towards the end with Kleber, closed out with him. They did a good job of kind of neutralizing Zubac. I'm curious to see if they can continue that. I know he got into early foul trouble that might have thrown him off of his rhythm. But so I'm thinking, I don't know, in my head, I'm like, the Dallas Mavericks just don't have the role players, dude. They have two, the thing is, Doncic and Irving played their best. Both of them played their best two-way game I've ever seen them play. And I'm just sitting here is this who they are now? I watched the game, and then I watched a video from our friend, mutual friend, Hoop Venue. And he put together a great video. I know he's a huge Mavericks guy for this series. And he talked about how Kidd made the decision to just put Luka on the ball. And he's like, we're just going to overload the ball side, put Luka on the ball. And when you overload like that, you have all that help showing. It doesn't really matter who's guarding the ball, because at the end of the day, you're relying on your help. And it was just so impressive, man, watching that scheme. First of all, Kidd's going tit for tat with Lou. He does not look outclassed at all right now. He's done a phenomenal job. So watching Doncic's effort, watching Irving's effort, it makes you wonder. But I don't know what to do, man. I don't know. I'm saying all these things now, and it just doesn't make I look at these teams in paper. I'm like, yeah, Clippers just have a much better roster. I don't believe in any of these role players for Dallas. But then I'm like, can they get do they have enough role players where it's you can rely on 2 or 3 of them each game, 2 or 3 different ones each game, to have one good game every 3 games, and then Doncic and Kyrie are just enough to kind of get you 4 out of 7. I don't know. And then Harden also has the history of kind of fading as series go on, so you have to account for that.
Yeah, he did not have a good game by any stretch. 2 of 10 from 3. That's a problem for James Harden. I'm okay with him taking less threes than that if he's going to make more than 2. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you're going to shoot 20%, then that's tough. Kawhi also didn't make a 3. Kawhi actually had an unusually bad shooting night, like you said. The defense of the Mavericks was really the standout. I think the Mavericks holding a team like the Clippers to 93 points is kudos to them. I think PJ Washington, him continuing to perform, maybe not at this level, because he shot 75% from 3, 50% from the field, and dropped 18 points. I don't think anyone should expect him to score 18 points throughout this entire series, but they need to continue to get that level of contribution from him, efficiency wise. He still needs to be knocking down the shots that they're giving him, and scoring within the flow of the offense. Luka, it's funny because I think he was fantastic in this game, but you look at his efficiency relative to what he did during the regular season, and he didn't even have an efficient night scoring wise. He dropped 32 points. Yes, 32 points is 32 points. Especially in a low scoring game like this. Sometimes that's what it takes, is to be, sometimes you got to be inefficient and drop the 32 to get your team a win. But Kyrie, 23 points, they combined for 55 points. If this is a low scoring series, I think I maybe like the Mavericks. I kind of have already liked the Mavericks a little bit more just because I think they have a clearer identity post All-Star break. And I think a lot of teams, if they can figure out their identity after the All-Star break, after the trade deadline, and really hammer things home, I think those are the teams that usually do a better job in the postseason. But that's not always true, especially with a team of experienced players like the Clippers with an experienced coach like Ty Lue. I think this will be a series that's kind of decided by adjustments that we see. And so far, like Ty Lue and Jason Kidd are going bar for bar. I like it.
No, it's sick. It's really cool. This is one of those series where you really need to be like, you can't be on your phone.
Can't passively watch it.
No, you got to be to really catch everything. Like I said, I was watching Hoop Venue, and I was like, I missed some of this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is like, and that's why I think there's some value in kind of consuming each other's work, especially during the postseason. But yeah, my thing is like, PJ Washington can't do what he did game 2 every game. But what if one of those, because they have so many role players. That's the thing that was like the good thing about Dallas's theory, where, I told you on Monday, I'm like, they have two like all-star, all-NBA, all-league caliber guys. And then they have like a bunch of guys who are like a 7th, 8th man on your rotation. Right. But the thing about having a bunch of those dudes is like, if you could press the right button as Jason Kidd, like, okay, this is a Josh Green night. Josh Green can give me 25 minutes. He can score like 14 points on 7 shots. He can give me good perimeter defense, get like 2 or 3 steals. Oh, this is a Derrick Jones Jr. night. This is a Maxi Kleber night. This is maybe they dust him off the shelf. This is a Jaden Hardy night. This is a Dante Exum night. If you can push those buttons, things get interesting. Things get really interesting. I still feel the Clippers on the series just because, like, I know their role players. I know who I can trust in those role players. And then, I trust that Kawhi Leonard is ramping up and that he changes the math a little bit. But I think this is going to be a dogfight. Like, this is going to be very similar to that Celtics Raptors series we saw in the bubble, where it's just like 2 coaches, the peak of their powers, adjustments, big games, big shots, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is going to be like the series where everyone like looks back on these playoffs and they're like, that series was insane. Like, holy cow. What a fun tactical series.
Did you ever play Batman Arkham City?
No, I played Arkham Asylum. I didn't play Arkham City.
Never mind. I had a good reference for you. But do either one? Okay, so we've seen OKC a little bit now. We've seen both of these teams a little bit. Do either of these teams, as an OKC fan, scare you in the next round?
Between the Clippers and the Mavericks?
Mm-hmm.
I think you can kind of tell from my demeanor throughout all of our discussion. I always have like a healthy amount of fear for any team. I'm probably a little more scared of the Mavericks just because of like the volatility of that team at their best. It worries me a little bit. Also, they beat the bricks off of OKC after the trade deadline. That scares me a little bit. The Clippers, I feel like they're definitely more of a known variable, where like, okay, you got to make sure you're on your toes and you got to make sure you're handling the things that they throw at you. But like, there is a certain level of like unschemability that the Mavericks have with Luka and Kyrie, where like eventually there will be a certain point in certain games where like, yeah, Luka's hitting everything, Kyrie's hitting everything, you can't do anything, it doesn't matter. The classic like buzz phrase of just like good defense, better offense. Sometimes that's really how it is. And so that volatility always scares me. And I like the known of the Clippers a little bit more. But both of these teams, I think, would probably put up a really good fight against OKC, potentially beat OKC in a series. I mean, I see both of those being like 7-game series.
Okay. One more thing we should have pointed out, Mann did not play in the fourth quarter, despite I thought he played a pretty good game. Terrence
Interesting.
Mann. Yeah.
I'm going to reserve some thoughts on Terrence. I've had some thoughts about Terrence Mann throughout the entire season, and we've kind of touched on him here and there. But
yeah.
We'll dive into that a little bit more as the series plays out. But unless you have anything else,
one more thing.
Okay.
When we record next Friday morning, how many playoff series will be left? What's your guess?
Next Friday morning.
So most of them will be at game 5, 6-ish right now. 6-ish, I think, right? Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. I think there will be four left.
I think we'll have
maybe 5.
Okay.
If the Heat keep shooting 53%.
Yeah, no, that's the one. I'm like, no, I don't think that. I'll go 3. I think there's 3 left at that point.
All right. We'll see who ends up being right. That's a good question. I didn't think about it. That'll be fun. We'll come back to that. Somebody be keeping track. As always, guys, thank you so much for listening, watching, whatever. We really do appreciate it a ton. The support on the podcast has been absolutely incredible so far. We love that we're able to do this, and we love that you guys like listening to it. Be sure to leave a 5-star rating if you haven't already on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a comment below if you have any questions. We'll try to answer them at the beginning of next episode. Follow us on Twitter at AlexHoops_, at Mat Issa 15. That's MATISSA 15. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you in the next one.